We have more for your ears only. I'm Catherine Herzog.
I'm David Alpern with this quote from the news. We did not know who was who. It was not written on their heads, I am a soldier or I am an opposition member. That was a Turkish foreign ministry spokesman on a camp for Syrian refugees, including armed opponents of President Bashar al-Assad, who claimed responsibility for killing 9 Syrian soldiers earlier in the week. It was also claimed that the Syrian soldiers had killed 40 demonstrators. Now this.
The president has fulfilled the commitment he made to the American people. We have also, under the president's leadership, fulfilled the commitment requested by the Iraqis.
He's put in question our success in Afghanistan, and he ended Iraq poorly. He fumbled the ball inside of the 10. I hope I'm wrong about what happens in Iraq, but they're dancing in the streets in Tehran.
That Secretary of State Hillary Clinton had to defend President Obama for keeping the promise to remove U.S. fighting forces from Iraq by year's end says something about the political combat underway back home. South Carolina's Senator Lindsey Graham was one of the more restrained Republican critics, but the promised withdrawal did raise questions about how well Iraq could deal with internal divisions, Iranian influence, and a recent return of violence.
Parallel questions clouded Obama's endgame for Afghanistan after Secretary Clinton's rocky mission to neighboring Pakistan about its role as a refuge for al-Qaeda and Taliban terrorists who killed at least 13 GIs in a Kabul suicide bombing at the weekend. To consider those questions and other national security issues for your ears only, we're joined again by Lawrence Korb, a former Assistant Secretary of Defense, now a Senior Fellow at the Center for American Progress. Welcome back to our program.
Nice to be with you again, David and Catherine.
Were you surprised that no compromise could be reached with the Iraqi government over keeping a modest contingent of U.S. fighters to support stability operations?
Absolutely not. It was clear to me. Remember, it was the Iraqis who insisted on the deadline for us to get out. And in June 2009, when as part of the agreement that President Bush signed, we had to withdraw our troops from the cities and towns back to their bases, then Prime Minister Maliki said, we repelled the invaders. The Iraqis never did want us there, and there was no way that their parliament was going to vote to approve it.
How big a U.S. force will remain now to guard the giant U.S. embassy and train Iraqi troops?
Well, you're going to have the same amount of military forces that you have in every other country of the world. Defense attaché and doing some of the the military sales. The embassy, that massive embassy compound, is going to be guarded by private security contractors.
And will there be more reliance on U.S. drone strikes from outside bases to keep pressure on violent elements?
No, I don't think so. I mean, unless the Iraqis ask for it, I don't think we're going to be doing that at all. We're going to have troops in Kuwait in case, some country like, Iran should have a massive military intervention. But no, the Iraqis, in fact, as part of the agreement that President Bush signed in the end of 2008, they have control of their airspace.
Republican critics say the minimal U.S. position in Iraq will be no match for influence by Iran, but other experts say that influence isn't really best balanced by military force. What do you say?
Well, Iran already has a great deal of influence there. Iran was, for example, Prime Minister Maliki and Muqtada al-Sadr, who has his own militia and who enabled Maliki to take over this time, even though he didn't get the most votes in the election. Basically, they lived in Iran during the time of Saddam Hussein. They've already got enough influence. I remember when I used to go to Iraq, basically, American officials would have to fly in the middle of the night, didn't tell anybody, and then take a helicopter from the airport to the green zone. Ahmadinejad would announce 6 days ahead of time, this the president of Iran, he was coming, and drive in from the airport. No, once, they already have influence there, and they basically, when we went into Iraq to get rid of Saddam Hussein, we empowered Iran, and there's really not much you can do about it at all. I don't think they're going to completely dominate it because the Iraqis are, an independent people, and I don't think they're going to just kowtow them. But no, Iran's going to have an influence there.
What about Iran's nuclear progress, its new underground nuclear sites, and the U.S. bunker buster bombs going to Israel?
Well, Iran, it's interesting. These sanctions that we have on Iran are beginning to bite. Their nuclear program has slowed down tremendously. It's amazing. I went back and looked because I testified this week about this. Go back to 2004. Everybody said 6 months they're going to have a bomb. They still keep saying it. This is 7 years later, and they're no closer to it. They're having a lot of technological problems with it. Are they trying? Sure, they're still trying. But the real question is, can they do it? And make that next step. And I don't see any evidence of it.
Let's turn to Afghanistan. How can President Hamid Karzai say both that Pakistan is the enemy to negotiate with, but also that he would stand with Pakistan against U.S. military action?
Well, I mean, how can he can say he's appealing to different, people that, he needs to keep himself in power. And there are a lot of people there who simply don't trust the United States. I mean, they should, but they don't. They see us as, occupiers. And so, saying that plays well with certain political constituencies. I mean, Karzai has not been a reliable ally. I mean, if you go back and you look at a lot of the things he said ever since, we put him into power in the Bonn conference.
Secretary of State Clinton tried to put a positive face on her meeting with Pakistan's military and intelligence chiefs, but published reports suggest they were quite defiant about not taking more losses in escalating pressure on extremist elements. What do you hear? What do you expect?
Well, I mean, I think what we need to do is stop telling the Pakistanis to fight our battles. We can handle them ourselves. And basically, the aid we give them should not be for military purposes. It should go to improve their, economic situation. We really don't need them, and in fact, they're going to allow. They're playing, both ends against the middle because they've been an on-again, off-again ally. I mean, when I was in Pakistan in 2009, I saw this TV show and it called them, they're our disposable ally. They're not going to change because, again, given our past history. But we went in and we got Bin Laden. We didn't tell them. And that's the way we're going to have to keep doing it. But in the negotiations we have with the Taliban, they're going to have to be involved because we're not going to stay there forever.
Lawrence Korb is a former Assistant Secretary of Defense, now a senior fellow at the Center for American Progress.
Now this quote from the news, "No, I haven't cried and I won't. I'll be strong and solve this problem for the Thai people." That was Thailand's Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra to reporters asking about the devastating flooding in Bangkok that threatened to overwhelm government efforts as tens of thousands fled the capital.
Next, Kodak moments at the White House before and after Kodak, for your ears only.